guys that are inactive that we're gonna have to figure out, what that means for their team, what that means for their motivation. Again, feels like bowl season all over again. Lamar Jackson, he's not going to play. They already clinched #1 seed. Christian McCaffrey, he's not going to play. His team already clinched the #1 seed in the other conference. Patrick Mahomes, they're locked into the 3 seed in the AFC. Not going to see him. Same for Matthew Stafford. The Rams, they're locked into the 6th seed, so you won't see Matt Stafford in this one. And just to make the picture a little clearer for us, we bring in Sean Kerner, the guy who, I'm getting ready for some sort of like Ray McLeod under or something like that. But he's going to help us with, kind of the overall picture and how to attack this, because I'll be honest, Kerner, I feel a little square when I'm just like, oh yeah, bet the guy with the incentives, or, this guy's not going to play, so that means this is going to happen. I feel like you kind of have to throw everything out, and week 18 is its own animal when handicapping. So I'll toss you the rock here and let you cook and just help me figure it all out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't have any hard, fast rules for week 18. I treat every situation differently. And it's one of my favorite betting weeks because it's like the perfect blend of preseason craziness, which I'm a preseason degen, with some matchups that have some serious playoff implications. I mean, they're basically playoff games. So it's a great blend of the two, and a ton of betting opportunity, I think. And there's like really 3 concepts that are pretty unique to week 18. The first one is, you mentioned it, teams that have already clinched, the 1 seed or the 3 seed or 5 seed, whatever, they're going to probably be resting their starters. And we've already seen that with a couple teams already resting their starting quarterback. They might rest some key wide receivers, defensive players, things like that. So when that happens, it's a case-by-case basis. Sometimes it's almost impossible to quantify. Like if the Ravens rule out all their starters, it's hard to actually quantify how valuable that is. So when it comes to that, I think the best situation, I think, where there could be an opportunity, again, this isn't an official play yet or anything, it's the Lions, who have like over a 95% chance of getting the 3 seed. They have like really little incentive to play their starters the full game. Maybe they want to get them out there for a half just to get, some reps and things like that. So that's something where I might consider taking the Lions in the first half as opposed to the full game. I think they're like -2.5 for the first half. That kind of reminds me of preseason, where you're going to have like maybe the first or second unit playing the 3rd string, something like that. So again, that's not, saying I'm taking the Lions, but there could be some situations that pop up like that, where we know the starters might play the first half and then they're going to play the backups in the second half. So that's something to look out for. The second one is a little bit more sneaky. And it's, teams that may pull the starters based on the score of another game. So
Right.
An example of that this week would be, the Eagles. They can improve their seeding with the win, but if the Cowboys win, they're pretty much locked in. There's nothing they could do. So the Cowboys are, nearly 14-point favorites at the Commanders. If it looks like they're blowing them out, that's when Sirianni might just, rest a guy like Jalen Hurts. So I'm thinking, if the Cowboys get up early, let's say their in-game money line gets -1,200 or better. If sportsbooks are offering, Jalen Hurts passing yard prop, I would be hammering the under just in hopes that, he might get the quick hook. So there's things like that. Again, I'm not saying I'm officially doing that. We might have more information later in the week, and the markets might adjust, things like that. But that's something I do look out for, and I have done in the past. And the
quickly,
third,
real quick, to jump in on that too, just the part about Philly, to me, and Tim, if you've got thoughts too, like they got to get it right too, right? Like that would be my one concern. Like the Eagles are not playing well. So like maybe they need this game as like a let's figure it out and get right game. I know that you'd rather keep everyone healthy. I realize that's the #1 priority, but that would be where I would pause with Philly, because if they were playing well and they could just give the game away and they feel confident in what they're doing offensively, they don't have an identity right now. So I wonder if they're really going to take that game seriously start to finish, because they got to feel right going into to the playoffs. That would be my only concern too.
Yeah, I would add, if I really wanted to make a buck, I would be, analyzing every single press conference with a highlighter out and, what does this guy say? Did he drop a little nugget? But again, that's too much for me. I'm just going to, probably like play Nick's 3 picks and get on with it. So
I know. Yeah.
like
AJ Brown had something today about how if he makes, his body language after a play, and he got like this diva wide receiver commentary against him. But his whole point was, I'm just trying to motivate my teammate. Just little stuff like that has popped up here with Philly the last handful of weeks. So anyway, continue. I just wanted to throw that in there in case that's something again, like you said, Kerner, you nailed it. You've got to look at every game as its own entity and not just put it all in a blender. So,
and a lot of it's speculation. If I'm catching myself speculating too much on something, I'm not going to bet it. Like, I don't
feel
think
like
that's
this
a
is
reason
August.
to bet. Yeah, no, when it comes to preseason, I bet on my speculation. That's a bit different. But right now, yeah, thinking they'll pull Hurts is pure speculation. You made a good point. Maybe they do want them to put up so many points or touchdown drives, they leave them in. So that's something that I could change my mind later in the week. But last but not least, I think an important thing to talk about is just week 18 when it comes to player props. We have, incentives, milestones, potential records that could be broken, things like that. And I think the market has done a much better job of baking those in. So there's been a lot of Twitter discussion, I should put it, on these. And it's a complicated thing with everything. Every use case is different. Just because the guy has incentives doesn't mean you take his overs. There could be value going the other way. I think the best example for this week specifically, I think, is DeAndre Hopkins. He has some very attainable incentives where if he gets 7 or more receptions, he gets $250,000. If he gets 49 receiving yards, he gets $250,000, and 2 touchdowns is another $250,000. All 3 of those are within striking distance for Hopkins, and they're not playing for anything. I think in those situations, players are more likely to collude, to get somebody their incentives. So that's something I'll be looking out for. And again, I'm not saying, I'm just going to take his over on receptions. If they float his line at like 6.5 and the over is -200, I might actually take the under. I don't know yet, but we have to see the market before we actually assess, what we're going to do about it. So I do factor these in, when I'm making projections or seeing, what I potentially want to bet on. But until we actually see lines, I can't say which way I'm going one way or the other.
And Kerner, you always do. I appreciate you always giving us a peek behind the curtain and saying, "Hey, I might do this, but I might not." I'm a human. Like sometimes I use my speculation. So I really appreciate that. And I'll ask just one more question before we let you go. Have you seen? Been doing this for a long time. Have you seen? Really in the last 5 years, maybe 2 years, the book's really getting sharper on this kind of stuff. Do you remember a younger Kerner, like being able to lick his chops over, misprices with incentives? Like, was there a time you remember it kind of changed? Like, synopsis of the history of it.
Yeah, it's been very recent. I would say it's very sharp now. They're well aware of all these incentives and all the chatter on Twitter. So when the lines are posted, that's going to be all baked in. But I would say just even like a few years ago, whenever it was Justin Jefferson's rookie season, I think he needed it was something like 118 yards to break it. And I remember telling Raybon, I'm setting his line at 114.5, something crazy like that. And they floated like a more normal line. It was like 77.5 receiving yards. And I just hammered, I don't know what words I can say here, the crap of the over there. And he blew it away. So those things are different, like setting a record like that. And I think it was a meaningless game. And we have that with Puka Nacua this week, who needs, 29 yards, I think it is. So he might play until he gets that. And I was saying, I'm looking for his prop to be around, say, 34.5 yards. I think that's a fair line. So there's definitely situations like that where they have gotten better, but there still might be some value on some of these.
Look at that. Fair enough. What a great question by me. We get a great story. That's Glash. That's how you do it here. That's how
hard-hitting journalism. That's good.
Sean Kerner, you're the man. We really appreciate it. Good luck. I can picture you already in my head with your phone out, with the refreshing of the live stats and the personnel on the field. It's really a treat to watch. So I appreciate it, and good luck in week 18.